Welcome to Paranormal News Today. What is PNT? Think of this show as a combination crucible and forum, a way to examine the myriad truths that make up our everyday existence. What will we be covering? In this series, we'll be examining the odd, strange, and noteworthy paranormal and normal stories of the day. Whatever catches the eye, appeals to our interests, or makes us speak out. But we cannot do it alone. As such, we invite you, the viewer, to submit ideas for subjects you would like to see in the future. Give me the far-fetched, the unusual. Send me the urban legends you heard as a child. Tell me about the thing under your bed, or the monster in your closet. Give me your poor huddled weirdos yearning to be free. But now, let's get right to it. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Since ancient times, man has been fascinated with his own reflection. From the first time in the far distant past that one of our ancestors glimpsed themselves in a still pool of water, mirrors have been with us. From the Wicked Queen in Snow White to Alice's adventures through the Looking Glass, mirrors have long been associated with paranormal phenomena. In many cultures, mirrors are thought to have the power to trap souls. Often mirrors were covered or removed completely from rooms where sick or dying individuals were. In their weakened state, they would have been more vulnerable to the power of the mirror, and upon death, the soul would be imprisoned within it. It has long been thought dangerous to gaze into a mirror by candlelight or at night. Demons, ghosts, or even your own death could be seen. Who has not heard of the urban legend of Bloody Mary? Even a few of the braver or perchance more foolhardy among our viewers might have tried raising her shade during a youthful sleepover. A more prosaic and popular fad during the Victorian era held that a young woman gazing into a mirror by candlelight at midnight on Halloween might glimpse a face of her future husband. The fact that a dewy-eyed young woman would be willing to risk her immortal soul by gazing for her future Prince Charming certainly speaks to a certain desperation to escape the inherent misogynistic tendencies of her world. There are as many strange tales reported about mirrors as there are mirrors themselves, but even amongst this endless gallery of the odd, there are those legends and tales that stand out from the rest. So brush your teeth, check your hair, and stay tuned as we bring you the top 3 haunted mirror legends. Number 1. The Fauna of Mirrors. The Fauna of Mirrors is an ancient Chinese myth that dates back to 2697 BC and the legendary Yellow Emperor Hongdai. Hongdai is a towering figure in the Chinese mytho-historical tradition, akin to Britain's King Arthur. A supposed sorcerer of great power, Hongdai served rather as a guardian, often defeating the powers of evil and preserving peace and life on Earth. The Yellow Emperor was credited with bringing civilization, agriculture, music, art, and language to the early Chinese, and serves as a focus for many fascinating legends. According to the legend at hand, at this early time in history, it was well known that behind each mirror was an alternate reality or world populated just as ours was. The creatures inhabiting this alternate world were said to be quite unlike anything found here on Earth, able to change their forms at will. They copied our forms, eventually learning to communicate with us. Beings moved freely back and forth between the two worlds quite peaceably for some time, but as with most tales, something went awry. After catching the leader of the mirror creatures trying to impersonate a tiger in his menagerie, Hongdai cast a spell that closed the mirror portals forever, trapping the creatures between the two worlds, never able to leave ours, and never able to re-enter their own. Adding insult to injury, or perhaps to punish the mirror beings for their arrogance, Hongdai forced them to forever mimic the people of this world. He set as guardians magic fish, which are the flashes often seen from the corners of your eyes as you look at and away from a mirror. Thus our reflections were born. But the Yellow Emperor warned that the spell he cast was not permanent and would only last 10,000 years. Eventually, guardian flashes would vanish, and on the day we no longer saw them, the spell would be broken, and the mirror creatures freed. Now, it is worth noting at this point that the Chinese did develop one of the earliest forms of ideographic language and have one of the longest recorded histories, with records dating back thousands of years. This would lend a certain credence to this legend, which is recorded by the Chinese not as a legend or myth, but as an actual historical event. Number 2. John Dees' Scrying Mirror. Born July 13th, 1527, John Dee was an English mathematician, astrologer, astronomer, alchemist, philosopher, and advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. Studious by nature, he used his keen intellect to explore the newly separating worlds of magic and science. Hand in hand with Euclidean geometry, astronomy, and navigation, he also pursued the occult, spending the last 30 years of his life in the pursuit of communication with angels and demons. As the founding practitioner of Anacosian ceremonial magic, Dee used many strange devices to summon, control, and communicate with these spirits. At this time, European exploration of the New World was an ongoing matter. As such, artifacts from the New Worlds were highly valued both as treasure and as having possible mystic powers. Among these was an Aztec ceremonial mirror, brought to Europe sometime in the late 1520s. It was made from polished volcanic black obsidian, specifically associated with the dark Aztec sorcerer god Tezcatlipoca, whose name literally translates to smoking mirror. It was allegedly used in Aztec rituals to communicate with the dark god. Rituals which were notoriously bloody and may have involved human sacrifice. Tezcatlipoca was a violent god and, among other titles, was known as the Lord of the Night Winds. He was often depicted as the archfoe of the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl. In the Aztec creation myth of the five suns, the first created Earth was ruled by the Dark Lord. He was struck down by Quetzalcoatl, and then the first world, or Sun of Earth, was destroyed. Quetzalcoatl then made another world, another sun, or the Sun of Water. This triggered an apparent cycle of creation and destruction between the two gods that may, or may not, be ongoing. How exactly Dee came into possession of the dark mirror is unknown, but what is known is that it was within the surface of this black glass that Dee first glimpses the angelic or Anacosian alphabet. Convinced that this was the angelic language used in the Garden of Eden, Dee used the mirror, crystal balls, and ornately decorated seals to push the boundaries of reality and glimpse the ultimate truths of the universe. Perhaps his reach exceeded his grasp, considering that Dee's theories were later mostly discredited and left behind as science marched forward and anything smacking of the occult grew more and more unpopular, and he peered into secrets better left unknown. Or, more chilling, perhaps the dark spirit of Tezcatlipoca masqueraded as Dee's angels and wrought a supernatural vengeance for Europe's rape and plunder of the indigenous tribes of South America. Dee was a major proponent of imperial expansion, after all, and as Queen Elizabeth's advisor, would have had direct influence on these events. As for the mirror, it is now in the custody of the British Museum, where it is displayed openly among other of Dee's occult artifacts. Personally, I'd lock this thing up in a dark closet somewhere, or perhaps return it to its homeland, where it properly belongs. Perhaps then Tezcatlipoca would be appeased. Number 3. The Myrtles Plantation Mirror. Built in 1796 in St. Francisville, Louisiana by General David Bradford, The plantation was then called the Laurel Grove. Located upon an expansive tract of 600 acres of land, the Creole cottage-style plantation house was rumored to have been built upon an ancient Tunica Indian burial ground. The general lived in isolation there for several years before being pardoned by President John Adams for his role in the Pennsylvania Whiskey Rebellion of 1799. Pardon in hand, he then moved his wife Elizabeth and their 5 children to the plantation from their home in Pennsylvania. Elizabeth continued ownership of the plantation after her husband's death in 1808 and ran it until 1817, when she turned over the management of the property to Clark Woodruff, a former law student of the Generals and swain of their daughter Sarah. As landowners of the period, the Woodruffs utilized slave labor and took from among them slaves to be personal house servants, and it is here that Chloe enters the story. Chloe was apparently popular with the family, serving as a housemaid and nanny to the 3 children, as well as their mother. At least, at first. While the details vary from Clark Woodruff forcing Chloe to serve as his mistress, and then the tryst being discovered by a jealous Sarah, to Chloe being discovered listening at the wrong keyholes to incriminating details of Clark's business dealings, what is certain is that Chloe lost one of her ears, and thereafter wore a green turban to hide her disfigurement. We may never know for certain what thoughts went through her mind as she slipped a poisonous extract she had made of oleander leaves into the batter of a birthday cake meant for her master's daughters. Perhaps she only meant to sicken them, and then by curing the family, to then cement her position in the household, and thus avoid being sent to work in the far more brutal conditions of the fields. The result was not what she had intended, however, for her plans backfired when her mistress Sarah and the 2 daughters Cornelia and Mary ate of the cake and sickened, lingering for some time before eventually dying in agony. The tales mention that, as was custom, the mirrors of the house had been covered during the illness, but either in error or by design, one had been missed, and the souls of the unfortunate woman and her daughters were trapped inside. Chloe did not escape responsibility for her mistake, however, for she was reportedly hung by the other slaves before her body was thrown into the Mississippi River. Whether this was punishment for her crime, or from a fear of reprisal from harboring her, the result was the same, and it is said that her restless spirit still wanders the grounds, perhaps seeking vainly to atone for her sins. The mirror itself survived along with the plantation, still reflecting the interior of the home throughout the years. The home that Sarah and the children could see but no longer reach. They would have seen the later remodeling and expansion of their home by Ruffin Sterling and witnessed the passing of history during the Civil War. They would have stood mutely, hands pressed against the other side of the glass while the plantation changed owners, until eventually, in the 1970s, it was bought by James and Frances Myers, who turned it into a bed and breakfast. Perhaps this is why, to this day, the owners and visitors to the Myrtles Plantation see ghostly handprints and stains in the mirror that appear without explanation and cannot be cleaned or removed, appearing to be embedded within the surface of the glass itself. Ghostly figures are often seen in and near the mirror. Here, visitors have snapped supposed images of the face and body of one of the Woodruff daughters peeking out from within the haunted mirror. Look closely at this photo. Can you make out the face and kneeling body of an apparition? Despite these fascinating legends, there is no slave by the name of Chloe to be found in plantation records. Further, it is a matter of fact that Mary Woodruff survived well into her adulthood. Mother Sarah, brother James, and sister Cornelia perished in 1823 from yellow fever, not from a poisoned pastry. Despite these facts, the strange events around the mirror and at the plantation continue. Which brings us to the possible explanations for these phenomena. As usual, we'll cover the top 3 most interesting. Number 1. Hauntings or portals. Perhaps the odd phenomena and legends associated with mirrors are exactly what they purport to be. What if ghosts and spirits regularly use mirrors to move back and forth between our world and the world of the dead? Do demons slip through them in the middle of the night to torment and torture hapless souls and children? Is the legend of the Yellow Emperor to be taken at face value as an actual historical event as the Chinese do? As we have seen, the history of paranormal events and mirrors stretches well back into antiquity. Can we give credence to the stories of our ancestors in our age of science and technology? Is there still room for magic and science to walk hand in hand, as Dr. Dees once believed? Could mirrors be causing or channeling portals? Portals are holes in the energy fields or barriers that separate the various realities all around us. Portals may also exist in doors, windows, closets, or wardrobes. Is this the origin of the monster in your closet? Be sure to ask the next time you see it, would you? Thanks. Are we stumbling through portals by accident? Or are malevolent forces bent on our destruction, pulling us through to their side and then taking our place? Would we know if they were? Number 2. Electromagnetic Fields and Quantum Mechanics. Studies of electrons have revealed that they have an odd ability. They can, under certain circumstances, be in 2 places simultaneously. Could this be a scientific explanation for the mirror phenomenon? Antique mirrors were often coated with silver nitrate in order to form the reflective surface. Silver itself has long been associated with the paranormal and is also thought to have mystical powers. Silver, as it turns out, has some rather unique properties. It is the most reflective of all the naturally occurring elements and blocks the lower visible frequency wavelengths that light travels along. This is what causes our reflections to appear. Silver is also an excellent electromagnetic conductor and is often used in fine electronics. Is it possible that the silver in the backing of the mirrors is capturing stray electrons and forming a residual electromagnetic field or charge? Many paranormal investigators have noticed the presence of highly charged EM fields can cause so-called haunting effects. Is it possible that this electromagnetic field is then serving as, for lack of a better term, a ghost attractant? Are spirits attracted to these energy pools and then able to use this energy to open portals between the worlds? Why then are the ghosts not also blocked by the silver in the mirror, being captured as well? Some paranormal investigators believe that ghosts and spirits vibrate along the higher ultraviolet spectrum, light which is invisible to the human eye. Being made of energy and operating at this higher rate of vibration, the theory goes, the spirits would then be able to pass through the EM field without hindrance, in fact making use of the EM field generated by a silver-coated mirror as a natural and convenient portal. Curiously, this theory could also seem to give substance to the old practice of covering a mirror. By interrupting the passage of light to the surface of the mirror, you are blocking the visible wavelengths, effectively stopping the flow of energy and thereby closing the portal and preventing the spirits from using it as the equivalent of an HOV lane into your home. Number 3. Peridot Leah. If you've ever seen a rabbit in a cloud or the face of Elvis in a potato chip, then you have experienced Peridot Leah. Peridot Leah is defined as a psychological phenomenon involving stimulus in the form of sights or sounds wherein the mind perceives a familiar pattern where none actually exists. When confronted with a lack of order, our brains are hardwired to make patterns or sense from the chaos all around us. But is this the case with haunted mirrors? As with confabulation, Are we simply making patterns appear when in fact there are none? Are we seeing the faces of tortured souls trapped within a mirror? Or are we simply seeing a random pattern of light and shadow? Or is it, in fact, as our ancestors believed? Is there something foreign, something beyond our ken? Something more deeply strange and mysterious, staring hungrily back at us from the other side of the looking glass? We here at Paranormal News Today invite you to investigate further and draw your own conclusions. We thank you for watching PNT and welcome your comments and suggestions for future episodes. Click like, share, or subscribe below to help support us and bring you the stories of the strange, weird, and bizarre that you want to see. I'm your host, reminding you to keep an open mind, because a closed one shuts out the truth.